fluffy girl. The fluffy girl.
She's hanging out on the lap.
Welcome to Unstructured and Unsupervised. I am Katrina Reese, and this is Nicole and
Nicole,
Narayan.
Monaco, Narayan, a little of both.
Yep.
Personalities that we have: Nicole Narayan and Nicole Monaco. Trina Reese, Trina, Pieces, Casey, Reese. All of the ladies are joining us this evening. Mm, 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 mm. So right before we started, we had a little bit of a breath work session
We
where we
did
did alternate
breathing.
nostril breathing. That we're breathing in through the left, exhaling through the left, breathing in through the right, exhaling through the right, bringing us into a neutral mind. And talking about schedule and structure is kind of what led us that. Like it was an unstructured day, hence the name of this podcast. And sometimes when there's not enough structure or we think the time is going to go one way and it goes another way, we get rattled, a little frazzled, and then what we have to
I was
come
stressed
back
out.
to stressed out. That happens. The
Nicole's just trying to
thing,
say I was stressed.
totally. But we just did a little breath work, which brought us back to center.
Yes.
And here we are now.
Here we are. And I have the timer, and the time is set. So, yeah, I definitely have trouble with schedules. Um, like, I think with the ADHD, if I start doing something novel and it's like, oh, what's this? I'm really good at keeping a schedule. Like, if I go to the gym, I'm like, I'm going to the gym this day, that day. I'm doing this day, that day. But if I fall off of it, it's so easy for me to never get back to where I was. Like it's it's troubling sometimes cuz then I'm like, oh no, I missed it. And then I have to like adjust myself. With
So
that, with also like not making myself feel bad. It's like really easy to make myself feel bad. So easy. I'm trying not to do that. I'm trying not to. So, um, yeah, it's just one of those days where it's like, oh my gosh, there's so much stuff to do in so little time. I think I'm just gonna go to sleep instead. That's my coping
I can
mechanism.
understand that. I can understand that. It's not easy to maintain a structure, especially when life doesn't really care about your plans. And it's like, oh, this is going to
Mm-mm.
happen instead, and these things are going to happen. There's always going to be something that takes us or tries to distract us or takes us off of our path or course or the day or life or whatever. And it's learning how to center ourselves back in without being hard on ourselves and without,
Mm-hmm.
shutting down completely or, sometimes we do need rest. We have to honor ourselves when we do need the rest,
Yeah,
but then we also
it's
have to
true.
honor when we need to come back to something as well.
Something that I have been working on that I have the tendency for a lot of negative self talk, and that's how I would get things done in the past. So
Okay.
I'm like trying not to do that. And one ADHD thing, right, is to not like feel this sense of urgency until it's like, oh, it's a problem. Like I need to do this now. Like it's the urgency is there. And so if I don't have this like sense of urgency on things, it's easy for me to like push stuff off. So the negative self-talk in the past was a way for me to kind of keep myself on track. So I need to figure out a better way to do that. I was talking to my
Okay.
therapist about that today.
That's very interesting topic because okay, so negative self-talk versus motivation.
Yeah,
So like,
like
okay,
negative reinforcement or like what the fuck's wrong with you? You got to do this. Like it it works around. I don't know. Is this a remnant of like being a Catholic school student? Of like, oh, I'm getting yelled at by a nun. I better make sure I don't screw up. I
I
don't want to get
think
yelled
that
at by
there
a nun.
it's it's interesting this topic that you bring up because this is something that was kind of mentioned within the last 2 weeks about like for myself, I my anger is sometimes my motivation. It's not always necessarily negative self-talk, but it'll be like, come on, Nicole, like you got to do
Mm,
this and you have to do it now, and if you don't get it done, these are going to be the repercussions of it, and blah blah blah.
yeah,
So sometimes it's taking the idea of the negative self-talk out of it versus still having that enforcement there, which being yelled at, quote unquote,
yeah,
sometimes you need to get pushed. You know what I mean? Like sometimes you need to
yeah,
push. And I don't necessarily think that being yelled at is the worst thing, but it depends on how you're receiving it to yourself. If you're saying to yourself, okay, if I don't get this, this, and this done, these are going to be the repercussions of it. Do you want to face those
yeah,
consequences? And like redirecting that rather than being like, oh, I'm bad for not doing this. Okay, well, these are the circumstances that'll happen if you don't do this.
yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does, but it also means that I need to like still work on how I need to view myself as important enough too. Like, and his this how I've been explaining this is that if I knew that, say, my mother, like if somebody was like had to pick up her medication and still hadn't done it 2 weeks later, I would be so mad at that person. But that person is me, and I'm talking about myself. Like, oh, I need to pick up my medication. Oh, I didn't do that 2 weeks ago. And then it's like you beat yourself up. So I was like, is
So,
there some kind of, um, I guess like almost like AA, but for ADHD, where it's like somebody's
oh my
calling
God,
me every day, or I have to check in with someone every day and like be like, oh, okay, so what do I have to do
so
today? This.
literally was just saying this the other day about how there's AA meetings and there's all these different types of support groups for something, and having a support system or a buddy system, more or less, to like help you through these things.
Yeah.
Like sometimes, I mean, granted, yes, if you can get to the state on your own to be self-motivating, sure, ultimately that is the goal. But sometimes you need a little help along the way to do
I
so.
need a lot of help.
That's okay. But like, that's the thing too, is knowing that that's okay and not being hard on yourself for that. Because a lot of times,
Yeah.
often people think, I'm not going to ask for help. I don't want to be a burden. If I ask for help, I look weak. If I ask for help, I'm bothering this person in some way and taking them out of themselves. And
Yeah,
honestly,
and
that's
then
what gets
also it's like if somebody who also has ADHD is trying to help me out, it's like, okay, are we both gonna
so.
like screw up because we both.
So literally yesterday I
So,
did this. How do I move it into the camera angle? So right, it says priorities, right? At the top of the list,
yeah,
priorities. So I segmented my priorities and I had written them down. Priorities, me. If I don't take care of me first,
I need
then
to take
how
care of
am I
myself
going to
better.
help take care of anybody else? I
Mm.
can't show up for other people if I don't show up for myself.
Yeah,
So just give you an example. I wrote my health, eating, vitamins, meditation, resting when I need it, drinking water. Have fun, be silly again. Reiki,
yeah,
massage once a month to refill my cup. To to give yourself the same things that you would give another person or that you would want to give another person is the
yeah,
same aspect of treating yourself like you are your own partner, like you are your mother, your brother, your sister, your whoever is important to you, best friend, whatever. And then on that list comes second priorities of relationships, work, family,
just everything else.
whatever your priority list is. And knowing that, like, if you can tap off one of those things on the list, at least that's a success.
If you can tap off, what was
Like,
that?
if you could tap off, say you write three things for yourself, if you could at least get one of those things done, that's better than getting no things done.
Okay, yeah,
You know what I
I
mean?
mean,
Be
I've
like,
actually too
okay,
in the past I've had to pretend that I was like a child to that I needed to take care of in order to feel like okay, I need to do this, you know?
and I
Cuz
think that that's a beautiful thing to do. People don't do that enough to look at themselves as an inner child. Like, and that's a great thing to do is parent yourself the way that you would treat a child because that at some point was neglected at some space in your life. And that's
mhm.
why you feel like you are not quote unquote worthy of being your own priority is because there was a certain
Ooh.
lack of neglect.
Yeah. And that's not to say that like, you know, it's like I love my parents, but
Of course.
I and this is it's funny too that you're saying this because something that I said to my therapist today was it's it's awesome to have your parent and I've had this experience of like a parent saying that like oh I look up to you and it's like that oh what a beautiful thing to say to somebody but because it was my parents it can be difficult to kind of like accept that compliment almost because it's like uh I don't I was I would have liked to have not been the person that had to learn in order for either of us to feel better.
So
You know, like
I think you're in a very you and myself and the people that are doing this work. And if your parents what we say to ourselves and how we and I hope you know I'm not negating your feelings in any way, shape, or form. Super valid, super understandable. But know that you're in a power position right now. You're capable of something that they have absolutely no idea how to even
yeah.
start or fathom to acknowledge.
Mm.
And you're showing them a different way. And the fact that you're doing something different than they've ever experienced, it doesn't have to be a negative thing that they look up to you. It could be a really profound thing that they almost looking at you now is like, wow, this is a source of inspiration to us to maybe see things differently. And you got to also
Mm.
realize as children, we didn't, I think personally, when we're going through the trauma of things, we don't realize what we're going through until it's much later. Until it's
Yeah.
much later, you're going, oh,
It's
now I
like
could look
that
back on
wasn't
that and
okay,
go,
right?
oh, that didn't feel good. That wasn't
yeah.
good. That and we put so much emphasis on what's good or bad versus just what is. And putting this good or bad on something makes the experience much more difficult than it actually needs to be because of the way
Yeah,
that
it's
we're
like
trying to do
putting
it.
another layer of like shit to
Right. Where it's choosing to look at a situation and going, you know what? I forgive my parents for not knowing how to do this work. And I'm accepting the fact that
mm.
I'm actually the one brave enough to put myself in this position. And they're actually complimenting you and
Right.
acknowledging the work that you're doing within yourself
Right.
as, wow,
And that's
we
awesome.
look up to you. And that is an
It
awesome
is.
thing.
But yeah, it is. And I agree with you, but I still have that, you know, kind of um it's just like there's just that feeling of sadness that goes along with it
Of
because it's
course.
like, oh, that meant like a lot of pain. That is also valid. So, and then
And
yeah,
see,
like living with these like two things, you know, it can
but
be
also like
hard to navigate.
empathizing with the fact that like imagine if it's sad for us to experience it, right? In
Yeah.
our generation, doing the work and experiencing the sadness that we do because we're facing it. Imagine the sadness that must have gone on within them for having absolutely no space to voice their opinions because there was emotions and things like this were never a topic of discussion in their own childhood.
Oh
So
yeah.
if
Well,
there's never
here.
somebody that changes that course or that shift, there's no way to experience it until somebody else shows it to you, and you are the catalyst in that.
Right. I think we have talked before too about like we learn the trauma that people who have taken care of us, we learn what that like they're if they haven't processed it, whoever it is, can go back as far as you'd like, generations.
Mhm.
It just the like trauma that gets passed on through the generations because of like just nothing changing, just being like, no, that's just how it goes.
Right?
So
Like that's all. Get over it. And it's like,
it's like
okay, I
no,
will get over it. I will get over it. I can get over it if I want to. You know what I mean? Like, if I want to get over this, I will choose to get over it. But there's certain
yeah,
things that, like, you have to feel. Like, you have to genuinely sit and feel because if you don't, you're pushing them down, you're suppressing them, and they manifest as dis-ease in your body. And feeling those feelings can bring up a lot of discomfort and a lot of pain,
yeah,
more so than the wound itself,
yeah,
because now you have to actually heal this, and
yeah.
it's
It's like
like,
you're
okay,
just
well, how,
pouring salt water onto something, like a cut,
right.
anything like that. Um, so it's like, do you ever feel like, oh, but like I don't want that responsibility almost of like
Or
I don't want to. So I definitely have had those moments for sure,
of being
and
like, I don't want to do this.
I'm just like,
Somebody else do it.
yeah,
Why does it got to be me?
it's like isn't that enough? Like isn't whatever kind of suffering that anyone really has gone through like isn't it enough, or do we have to just keep like you know panning through it? But you just have to keep panning through it.
I think that there is definitely a layer of adjusting the sails to certain things and having um, a response that can change the course of things. So if you keep responding to something in the same way, you're going to keep getting the same result. So here's a perfect example. I spent some time with my mom earlier today. We went to the dollar store, and the girl behind the counter opened the picture frame that I was buying, but I purposely wanted it because it was packaged. And she opened it, and it was the only one left on the shelf. So I was
Why'd she
like,
open it?
because there she was looking for the barcode, and she thought the barcode was going to be on the inside of the thing.
What?
And I was like, it wasn't a smart decision on this girl's part. She definitely made not a smart, educated decision to do this. So my mom got
Okay.
very upset, and she's like, "What's the matter with you? Why would you open that?" Blah 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 blah. And started yelling at the girl, and I just said, I just put my hands up, and I took a deep breath, and I went, "It's okay." I'm like, you need to calm down. I'm like, she made a mistake. I was like, you were trying to do the best you could with what you thought might have been. I'm like, it's totally fine. I'm like, I'm going to end up opening this package anyway. So it's okay. I'm like, when somebody realizes they made a mistake and now you're making them feel worse for that
Yeah.
mistake, it's like, why am I going to make this girl already feel worse than she already does?
Yeah.
And my mom was trying to make it worse. And she's like, getting huffy. And I realized in that moment that I have portrayed so many times of my mother's behavior, like being like, why is this person not doing the thing that I asked them to? Or why are they not, like, why are they doing this? Why are you doing it this way? And like get mad about it rather than being like, it literally just happened. I can't do anything to change what just happened. It's already done. It's already done.
It's so
It's
funny
already
because it's
fucking
like,
done.
but yeah, my reaction is like, why did you do that though? Just because I'm like,
100%. That was my, I mean, of course, I was like, why the fuck are you doing this? You
I've
fucking
never
idiot.
seen
But
that before.
why would you do it? Why would you even think to do that? But the fact of the matter is that she already did. So I could sit here and berate her and make her feel dumber than she already does, or be like, hey, maybe not do that next time. If somebody, maybe ask them next time, like, can I open this? Do you need this right away? Or is this a gift or whatever? And she was like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Like, it's okay. But I've been that person where I flipped the shit on somebody because I thought they didn't send me my avocado
Oh
sushi
my
roll.
gosh, I get so upset when people screw up my food order or if there's something
Oh,
missing or I it's
no, it's a problem.
it's a problem.
It's a problem. I was angry.
What is
I didn't
this?
have my avocado roll in there. I called the place up. I was like, I asked for this. I called. I wanted it. You didn't bring it here. They're like, we put it in the bag. We put it in the bag. I'm going to check the cameras. They said. I said, check your fucking cameras. I don't care. I want to know the avocados. Blah, blah, blah. Needless to say, they did send the avocado roll, but somebody else took it out of the bag before I was able to get to it. So
Uh,
now I had to call these people back and apologize like an asshole. I'm so sorry. My bad. I would have just taken a breath and said, wait a minute, let me assess the whole situation here and ask, hey, did anyone take my avocado roll out of the bag when it had a problem? But I'm so reactive sometimes that I don't even think about the other scenarios.
I've
I'm
definitely done
hangry.
stuff like that before, or ever so often, and it's like, oh gosh, is this how I'm a Karen? But
Right.
ever so often, like I'll make a call because I'll be like, I have to solve this right now, and then I'm on the phone, and then be like, oh, nope, nope, that's correct. I just didn't look deep enough, or I didn't see, or oh, I put the wrong address for it to be delivered to. I'm the idiot. Like an hour and a half later, where's my food? Oh, it's on
Oh,
my
I
old
not.
apartment doorstep. uh,
Exactly.
that's happened
Well,
3 times.
we're all guilty of making dumb mistakes and doing things, and it's like showing ourselves compassion in that moment. And I really wasn't even so much doing it to the girl, but it was like there's been times when I'm at work and I've made a mistake, and how would I have wanted someone to talk to me if I had made a mistake? Like I
Hmm.
wouldn't want somebody attacking me like that. So I'm like, I got to put myself in this position right now and go, how would I want someone to talk to me? Like, it's okay, no big deal. Don't worry
Yeah,
about it.
exactly.
There's worse things in life than you opening up the fucking picture frame that I'm going to open up again anyway. So, whatever. So
I
it's
mean, that's
just,
really
it's just,
good. Good job.
dang,
I would have been like,
it's, it's
hello.
just wild being a human. Being a human and living the human experience
Being a human
is
is so weird.
so strange. Can
It's
we just
so weird.
touch? Do you listen to Joe Rogan at all?
I've listened to podcasts in the back. I used to listen to podcasts constantly because when I was working in offices, that's how I would be able to concentrate. It's like I need something to listen to while I do this thing. But now, because I work from home, when I'm in the office, I I have like Netflix on in the background. So, um, no, I haven't listened to a podcast in a long time. Thank you for waiting for a minute for that explanation.
Quite all right.
Oh my gosh, I did. I told you this before, but I did not take my extended release medication today, and I can tell. I can tell now when it's like, dang it, I need it.
Okay,
But
well, that's a
sometimes I
good
need to
thing.
take a break from it for a day or so. I'm like,
Then it reminds you of how well it's working.
yep.
So, yep. um,
My boss
anyway,
is so. Oh yeah, Joe Rogan. Go ahead.
Joe Rogan, he has this podcast, and he had a doctor come on it yesterday, and they talked about COVID and this, that, and the other thing. And like, um, are you comfortable talking about COVID for a minute?
I can listen.
Okay, fair enough.
This smells like
Uh,
metal.
it's
But you know that metal smell? I just smelled it. I was like,
yeah,
oh,
oh, it is metal, right?
it's metal.
Okay, so it doesn't smell weird. It smells exactly like it should.
Well, it's like it's you know when you haven't worn a necklace in a while and then you like wear a necklace and you're like, smells weird,
Smell.
but it's metal and it hasn't been going. It hasn't gone anywhere. I guess it's just like oxidation smell, maybe. Some chemical reaction is making this.
It hasn't gone anywhere. I just pictured your necklace going on vacation. It was like, bye, Katrina, I'm going to Vermont. Comes back smelling like maple. Um,
I mean, I would like
anyway,
that. Joe Rogan podcast.
Mm,
Sorry.
oh yeah, Rogan podcast. He had a doctor come on and they conversed about COVID and talked about how um you know there's science to getting the vaccine and getting, wearing the mask and all of that. And then Joe Rogan was pretty much like, I had it, I did these things, and this is what helped me feel better. And going back to the topic of like respecting where people are at for themselves,
Mm-hmm.
and like, I feel like there's just such a divide in people when it comes to this topic. Like, it's either you're totally, totally for it or you're totally, totally against it. And there's like,
That needs to stop.
there's no middle ground on like being like, I respect your decision and I respect mine. And it's like people are shaming each other into their own belief systems.
Yeah.
And it's like, what is
I
going
feel
on
like
here?
there's so many people that, for one way or the other, just lie about whatever their reality is in order to not have any kind of confrontation.
See, and I'm not afraid of confrontation. Like, that's one thing I am not afraid
I
to
mean,
do is like,
I don't have a problem either with that, but I just feel like it's easier for people to be like, I guess to whoever their audience is, to be like, yeah or no,
right.
because like what you're saying, because it's such a bleh
I'm just
situation.
going to say something that might sound, however, I'm not going to put a label on how it's going to sound. I'm just going to say it, and whoever's hearing it or whatever can interpret it the way they want to.
All right.
But most people, they're saying there's like, there has been people with obesity who have had issues with COVID. There's people with autoimmune diseases that have problems with COVID or telling people that they should be getting vaccinated so that they're not more at risk to catching this. And the more people that get vaccinated should be worried about their health and their concerns. Or, people of different ethnicities and their level of COVID and how it affects them. And why is it everybody else's responsibility to worry about everyone else's health when nobody's taking the responsibility to worry about their own health? Like, as we just started out with the topic of this conversation in the beginning, is like prioritizing yourself and your own health and well-being. If we don't prioritize our own health and well-being, then we develop these vices to either suppress or eat our feelings or drink our feelings or get so depressed that we don't even acknowledge our feelings. And then we get these autoimmune diseases that resonate in our body because we're not facing the actual problem. Now we're just dealing with symptoms of the cause, and nobody's going to the depth of the cause to fix it. So they're more susceptible of getting sicker quicker because they're already in such a state of a lower wellness. Does that make sense?
I understand your point.
So I guess my other point is like, if those people aren't taking their health and wellness and making it a priority first to make themselves do everything that they can to be in their healthiest space, why is it my responsibility to make sure that you're healthy?
I mean, like, I have
That's what
I
I'm
have my own opinions on these things but I don't want to talk about them because it's like, I just don't want to talk about them because it involves a lot of things, you know. But
I'm
I
not
definitely
I'm
understand.
just trying to wrap my head around certain things because it's such a hot button topic and
Exactly.
there's so many points of views and there's so many different opinions about it, and I'm just kind of like playing devil's advocate or perspective advocate or angel's advocate or whatever way you want to put it, to like look at
Angels.
every single aspect of it before there's any decisions made or whatever. So it's just a very interesting topic of conversation that I'm just curious to feel and hear and listen to what everyone has to say about it before I make like any full-fledged decisions, you know?
Yeah.
I was just curious what other people thought about that, or you, or anyone, but
I mean, like I said, I don't. The reason why I don't really like talking about it is because it involves a lot of like, there's a lot of personal reasons that I don't want to discuss on the internet, and and maybe maybe because I choose to do that, is that possibly contributing to why the dialogue about this is so problematic? Is when people who are like have a more complicated point of view about something, they don't really say anything because, I mean, the reality is, and this is for any kind of topic that's like involves, I don't know, some kind of side of the hill, to,
right.
this is where I'm going to put my, like, it involves a lot of listening, and people who aren't ready to listen aren't going to respond in a way that is um, like in a way of understanding. It's going to be combative, and it's going to be even more digging in of the heels. So it's like, okay, what are you going to do with this,
Right. It's
uh,
just that's just where I'm just like trying to find the level of understanding and trying to be the voice of being like whatever feels true to you and whatever feels like it's the best position for you.
I think
Like that's
that
what
for, like, I guess my opinion on it in general is you have to do what you need to do to be healthy, and you need to not cause harm to other people, um, regardless of whether or not their opinion matches yours. And it's sad that either way, um,
you're causing harm to each other
you're causing
regardless.
you're causing harm by not thinking about um, yourself or other people in general. So it's, I hope, going to be that more information and more, you know, like real information, uh, studies, um, just things that come with time too, uh, of just like data. Uh, and it doesn't matter what's like, and I'm just saying this, I am just saying this and as an overall point of view of like, people are so upset either way, and that is also not helping you or other
Right.
people. um,
Right.
I think we've talked before too about like what stress does to the body, and like being in a state of like emotional turmoil. um, it's a stress on your body. So the fighting about something, whatever it is, it's not helping our overall health. So I hope that people like start to, but then at the same time I'm like, I feel very cynical about things, because it's like, oh, but there's so many examples of things throughout history that people, if you talked about stuff in a better way and not like a you're wrong way, if you really listen to people, you'd solve way more problems faster. But opinions too, it's like it's a part of your identity, right? It's like an ego thing. When somebody doesn't agree with someone else's opinion, the
But
tendency
why,
is just to be like,
but,
what the, you know, like
but
you're denying my
why
experience.
can't I hear you, like, not why can't I hear you, but like in conversation with people, why is it that, like, if I disagree with you, that I'm automatically wrong? Like
Exactly.
I could listen to you and go, okay, that works for you. You feel good about that decision. That's a smart decision for you. This is what you think feels best. Like, okay, and walk away from it with an agreement to disagree and not hate that person or not feel like it's a right or wrong. And that is such
And that's the thing
a
too. It's
big
like, well,
thing.
there might not necessarily be, and this is for anything with an opinion. Right and wrong opinion is such a, people like to have this dichotomy though of decision,
Yeah.
and that's not. It just it makes things easier, I think.
Somebody posted on Facebook, and this doesn't have to do with COVID, but somebody posted something the other day, and it was like, Superman's going to be gay now. Like, what is this world coming to? And I'm like, so I thought it was funny. I was like, super. So I wrote super, and I was like, that's fun. Like, who cares if Superman's gay? Like,
Yeah,
there's a different perspective to twist on this. Like, being human is being creative, and it's being like anything you want to be. So if you want to look at a gay Superman, like, watch the gay Superman. If you don't want to watch gay Superman, don't watch gay Superman. Like, no one's forcing you to have to, like, enjoy this. Just like, oh, that exists. Okay.
I
And
was
that's it.
watching Bill Nye, like one of the Bill Nye documentaries on Netflix, and in the documentary, he has a debate with this with a creationist. So basically, someone who doesn't believe that global warming is happening, that the Earth is uh, younger than what Bill Nye is saying. So they had a debate on CNN, and um, it was very interesting seeing the. Okay, so they have this debate. They present their points of view. People are watching it. They're tweeting about it. They're on social media, whatever. And after that happened, there was like more donations. Was there more donations? I'm not saying like Bill versus this other guy, right? I'm just saying that there was an influx of donations towards this museum uh, that supports the other person's point of view. I don't know his name.
Okay.
But, anyways, there were people who were like, oh, when you give people a platform to talk about things, uh, then you're taking on the possibility that that person is going to be supported by other people, and maybe that'll be uh, a negative impact on your, like, against your point of view, right? So if you're having this argument about like global warming, and one person saying it's not happening and one person saying it is happening, and uh, it's like, no, that guy's so wrong. We're going to prove him wrong by with our money and with our decisions on what we do and consume. And that's just like anything. That's religion, that's politics, that's stuff like that.
That is. And I feel like there's an aspect of agreement or following suit because people don't want to necessarily make waves or rock the boat in any way. And it's like
Or
there's
it's just that
a
they want to be like, I'm right. And so if you have
wait,
somebody,
I guess what I was just going to ask is like, what makes somebody, if it's right for them, as in, like, we're collectively here sharing the world, obviously together, it's our world all together, but we're all having an individual experience here.
yeah.
So if we're all having an individual experience, collectively sharing it together, what might be right for me could be totally wrong for you. But
I mean,
why is
yeah,
it now
that's
wrong for you? Because it's right, because it's wrong. It's
well, but
wrong
that
now for me because it's wrong for you.
oh, hold on. Let me close the door.
Okay.
Um, no, I'm saying as like an example of like, I'm saying wrong versus right because like, wrong versus right in what way? So it's like, okay, if you're somebody that, like, supports the idea that we are not taking care of our environment and that the earth is becoming a place that is, that we're not prepared to handle, and that we're not making choices that's going to help our future, then it's like, I guess it's just kind of like you have to start to think about, okay, we're all having an individual experience, but we're all part of this. We're all one thing. We're all in the same universe together, and I mean, from what I think is we're experiencing things from different points of view, and like that's the beauty of this universe, right? Whatever you believe, if you believe in one religion or another, if you whatever. So, like, how are you, like, are you choosing to live a life that not only is being that you're treating yourself with like this ultimate respect of, this is what works for me and this is what's good for me and this is what I want to do and this is how I'm going to live my life, and also not causing harm to other people. But it's hard to understand if you're causing harm to other people, um, if you don't think about it. And also, um, a lot of people don't. I mean, I would think most people would be like, yeah, I don't want to hurt other people. And that if there is somebody who has this point of view that's like, okay, well, if you don't want to hurt other people, but what you're doing is hurting other people, and how does that make you feel? It's kind of like, well, am I hurting other people or not? Like, it's not a good feeling to be like, oh, I am responsible for this in some way, cuz yeah, where is the line of responsibility as a human being to for anything? So,
Exactly. And that's my point is saying it's like it's such an individual experience. And it goes to a perfectly good saying that's like, no one raindrop thinks it's responsible for the cause of the flood, And
yeah.
it's like, um, so no matter which way you look at it or choose to look at it, there's always going to be a positive and there's always going to be a negative, regardless of how you look at it. Because if you say to some, what you just posed, which was great, is saying like, you don't want to cause harm to anybody, and nobody, you would like to think that nobody's out there going, oh, I want to cause harm to anybody. Of course not. But
Yeah.
there's also people that need to take responsibility for themselves, who need to ask themselves, like, am I causing harm to myself
Oh yeah.
by not showing up fully for me first? Because now if you're not showing up fully, this is just the other side of the coin, is like, if you're not showing up for yourself fully in a way that is
Ooh,
eating healthy, drinking healthy, what happened?
I just cracked my back.
Huh. Eating healthy, drinking water, taking your vitamins, getting proper rest, making sure that the attention that you have in your mind. When we talk about environmental aspects, your space of your body is your own environment first before anything else. Even if you leave your house, you're still in the environment of yourself
Hmm.
first. Is the environment of inside of you feeling as it's in its best healthy potentially,
Yeah,
its
what are you
best
taking? What are you taking out out there?
what are you taking on? And if you're not taking that on or making that a priority and not making yourself something that's to get the best that you can, now are you a harm to other people because you're choosing to not do the best for yourself, so that makes your immune
Hmm.
system and your things weaker, and now the other side of it has to feel like, well, now we have to pick up the slack for those people and now we're the ones that are harming them. Like there's two very
Yeah,
different sides of harm, or two very different sides of how to approach this. And I don't believe that either is wrong. I don't believe either is right. I feel like it is such an individual choice and such an individual experience that should be respected for the individual experience that it is, versus making it such a big thing that it's like, well, it's this or it's that, and then this, we're all together and it's this. And it's like, yeah, but if I'm showing up fully for myself and I'm healthy, why is it that you're not healthy and I'm responsible to make sure that you're healthy? But like,
yeah. But then also, it's kind of there's this point of view too of like you're judging somebody else's health versus your own, and it's
but
like, okay,
that's
well,
exactly the other side of it as well, from that the other side of it.
right, like they might be saying the exact same thing about you. Like,
Correct.
oh, but that
So
isn't
that's
healthy.
where,
That's yeah,
right. So like that's where I find myself really struggling to like find a common ground in this, to be like, wait a minute, like we're both feeling the same things. Both fears are valid, both strengths are valid, both beliefs are valid. I'm not disvaluing either side of this, but there's got to be some sort of form of being able to agree to disagree on things, with a healthy form of being like, okay, rather than being like, you're totally wrong. Like,
it might not even be like agreeing to disagree. It's like, okay, then how do we find a solution together? You know?
that's where we're all, I feel like we're at, is like, what is the solution there? What is it?
Yeah,
You know? And it feels like it's being very pushed towards being vaccinated and getting the vaccine and wearing the mask. And that is what, the media is also breeding us to hear every day. I don't necessarily think that it's right or wrong. Again, it's just a matter of knowing my own experiences within myself. But there's another doctor that talks about quantum physics, which is another science that people don't really seem to look at, and the space of quantum physics, of how you can regenerate your DNA and your cellular development and your immune system, and through breath work, meditation, and visualization. Like, there's all these other techniques that exist to keep your body in a state of bliss,
mm-hmm.
that you're less susceptible to attracting any disease or viruses or things, because your body is not in a space to take that on. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So
I mean, then
it's just very,
it's just a matter of like continuing to obtain like in terms of like how do you feel better about whatever It sounds like this is a very big struggle that you're going through right now, and it's like you said, like put yourself as a priority, and how are you going to do that? You're going to do that by gathering information and seeing how's your experience, and if something isn't working, or if it seems like, oh, here's something that I hadn't considered before, like not letting it keep you from considering, um, like, okay, so what is better, and that's for anybody. We're just like, okay, so how do we make this better? How do we make things not bad.
Right.
So it's
It's just a very, very interesting topic. That's all. I find it's still learning a lot about it, still learning and trying to understand other people's perspectives, trying to respect other
mhm.
people's perspectives, being patient with myself and others, and hearing everybody out for where they stand within themselves without ostracizing anyone or making them feel like they're disgusting or making them feel like they're horrible for having what they feel is their truth. And it's like it's just that it's really touchy. It's just such a touchy subject, and I don't know.
Yeah,
It's just interesting to be a part of it right now and witness it and experience it and try and develop some sort of
yeah.
solution that's best for
Where
both sides.
like seeing like people's health become politicized, and this is for anything related to health. Uh, it's hard.
It is. It really is. Anyway, that's enough about that. Thanks for
it's it's definitely exhausting to like. It really involves a lot of like philosophical consideration if
right.
you're going to, yeah, if you're gonna like live in the world. What does that mean? What does it mean to live here?
That's what I'm trying to figure out. Like, what are we all doing here right now? Like, what is going on? Like, like everything feels like it's just such a divide right now. And it's like, it's so split. Like, every topic you look at, it's like
Yeah,
there's something everywhere you look that is dividing us as a whole in so many different ways. And this division keeps like political stuff a thing because with the division,
yeah.
it's
It's
like, well, it's
like
this side, that side, and it keeps that alive. And it's just like, ugh,
yeah,
why are we giving so much of our energy to this? Like, why is everyone so, that's my concern, I guess, is like everyone is so willing to give their attention to this topic without looking
at
inwardly
themselves.
or looking at themselves. They're so willing to say, well, so and so told me this, so this is what I have to do now. And it's like, okay, just because somebody told you something doesn't mean that that's necessarily your truth. Like you're just listening to what somebody told you. Like, what do you feel inside of your body? Like, what do you think inside of your mind? So often it's so much like, well, this is what I read, this is what I saw, and this is what it is. And it's like,
And why
is
is
it?
it too? And like, why is it so important for you to be, not you necessarily, but like for anyone
Right.
with an opinion, why is it so important for you to be correct? To feel correct?
Right. Like I'm okay with not being right. Like I don't need to be like I need to be right and you need to understand where I'm coming from. Like I'm okay with not being understood. I'm okay with being misconstrued. I'm okay with being villainized. I'm okay with being ostracized. I'm okay with it because I know within my heart that those are not my intentions at
Mm-hmm.
all. And I know that. But if the persons or the peoples or whoever you're talking to are not willing to look at something outside of that, then they're going to, because it threatens them or it challenges them or it triggers them in a way, you're already me, not you, but me, I've experienced, is automatically the bad guy or an asshole or some sort of
Yeah.
villainized person because I question things.
Mm-hmm.
I've always been somebody who questions what's happening. Why? I don't feel like that inside of myself. And it's like, well, what do you mean? This is what it is. And it's like, I don't know. To me, it doesn't, I don't watch a lot of TV. I don't listen to a whole ton of music anymore. Don't really listen to a lot of podcasts. I don't really put myself in a media world. Everything I follow on
Yeah.
Instagram is things that I want my attention to go to. It's like-minded things. Granted, when I get challenged by something else, it forces me now to have to look at it from a different perspective, which is what I'm doing now, and being like, okay, so how can I better understand this versus, well, my opinion's the right one, and because they're not doing it my way, it's wrong. No, it's like, okay. I want to understand this, but because I understand it for you and that works for you, like, why do I have to change my whole system now? Because that's what works for you.
I
But
mean,
that doesn't work for me.
I guess then in that case, it's kind of like, I mean, have you also thought about like, um, in terms of like changing your system, right? Where it's like, oh, this is just how it goes for me. Um, like, is there a way to integrate things that other people say into a system that you have?
Well, that's exactly the point of where I'm trying to get at is like
Mm.
where's the happy medium of this thing where I can try and be like, okay, let me understand these perspectives, put them here, but like, how does that really feel in alignment with myself? And am I doing it because it's truly in alignment with me? Or am I doing it because I feel like it's in alignment with that person and I want there to be more of a unity there? That's for me to decide within myself. So of course there's a unity amongst all of us collectively. So I'm trying to find out a way to feel like there's some sort of agreement, like to get vaccinated and be wearing a mask and doing all of those things and still continuing doing breath work, meditation, and visualization techniques. Like, if I believe in one thing so strongly this way, what's to say that integrating that other thing isn't just another layer of support?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But it's hard to wrap your head, for me personally, it's hard for me to wrap my head around that when I've already experienced not being in a
Yeah.
space of sickness, not being in a space where I'm susceptible to those things because I trust my body and I trust my immune system and I trust the things that go on within myself. So there is a pendulum that I keep going back and forth to because I want there to be a unity in it. And I keep coming back to this point of like, okay, is it extra layer of support? If I get in my car, am I still putting my seatbelt on because I don't want to, you know, get into a car accident and fly out of the windshield? You
Mm-hmm.
know, I'm putting my seatbelt on. What would be the difference if I put a mask or a get the vaccine for of an extra layer of support? I could drive with no seatbelt on, but here's my point in this, and which I think is very interesting. Like, take for instance, back in the day, you put on a seatbelt, right? You get in your car, you put on a seatbelt, it's an extra layer of support. Comparing it to a vaccine and a mask, put on a mask, you get the vaccine, it's an extra layer of support. But then you keep putting this like a beep, a beep, a beep, and there's this fear now that keeps coming instilled with it. All these deaths are happening, all these things are happening. It's not about more support, it's fear that is driving you to have to get this done
So
versus
is that like what is that like the crux of the issue for you? Is that it like it's almost like a symbol of this fear or like this like way of living um that you
I think
aren't
very that I aren't what?
that you aren't like somebody that like it's like you were just saying like there's a lot of fear involved. It's like are you choosing to do things based on a fear response?
That's what I'm asked. That's what I'm trying to understand. Is like, is this do people really want to do this, or are they so feared by what could happen that this fear is breeding you to get this thing done? Now, going back to the car analogy, nowadays you get in the car and they have all these things to keep you safe. You
Oh,
can't switch lanes. You can't turn the wheel. The blinkers go off when somebody's next to you. If you're reversing, there's a beep, beep, beep. Sometimes those things are actually more alarming, literally, than you actually
yeah.
having to turn your head
I recently drove a
and you
Prius. I was like, how do you turn
right.
off the
And it's
beeps?
not even being able to use your own brain to trust your things are being created right now for you to not trust your own instincts. You're putting your trust into a car to drive you somewhere on its own, to park for you. You're putting trust in that everything else that's being done for you is. So where does your sense of self come from anymore when everybody's just not using their brains to drive, not using their brains to do. It's just like the beeping goes off and it's actually it's even scarier than it is to just drive your car and be responsible for yourself. Now the car is responsible for you. It's it's a little weird to me. I don't know. And I'm comparing that to this situation in the sense of like, uh, uh, where is the line of trying to trust yourself versus putting the trust into something external all the time? That's where I'm just
Yeah.
like, I don't know. I don't know.
Well, we are actually out of time.
Okay.
So thank you for watching Unstructured and Unsupervised,
Thank
and
you.
we will be back next Thursday.
Next
And
Thursday.
yeah, thanks for
Well, thank you
watching.
so much for listening.
Ooh,
If anybody's watching, I really appreciate you guys watching. I hope you could listen to all of this with a very open mind and an open heart and understand both perspectives, weigh out options that feel good for yourselves, good for others, and whatever feels
just keep
true
like
to.
like whatever your opinion is, just talk to people. Like examine everything always.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye. I love you.
Love you.